this is about two little kids in a small town. They were a little bit of a troublemaker. And one day they were really hungry. And they were walking around, and they saw in a house through the window a big bag of walnuts. And they said, oh, man, look at that. So they looked at, there was nobody around. They broke into the house, and they stole that big bag of walnuts. So they ran away so they can, they can divide the bag. But they ran away, and they wanted to go to a place that nobody will see them doing that. And they saw the cemetery. I said, well, let's go there. Who's going to come to the cemetery? It's late, So they go there to the cemetery, and they go behind the big tombstone. So just to be sure nobody can see them from the outside. And then, with the emotion, they were shaking, even a couple of walnuts, they fall by the gates. They said, let me go. No, leave it there. Leave it there. Come here. So they go behind, and they start splitting the bag. One for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. Now, there was another little kid that was walking outside the cemetery, and he's walking, and then he hears something coming from the cemetery. And he hears that a voice behind the tombstones goes, one for you, one for me. One for you, one for me. And the kid said, I knew it was right. I knew the stories that my grandmother told me about God and the devil dividing the souls was right. So he runs home, grabbed his father, said, Dad, you have to come to hear that. All the stories from grandma were real. God and the devil are dividing the souls of the town. You have to come with me. Come on, kid. I said, those were, stories of grandma. That was not real. I'm telling you, I just heard it. Come with me. So the father goes with him. They are outside the cemetery. And yeah, he can hear it too. A voice coming from behind the tombstone saying, one for you, one for me. I told you that's God and the devil splitting the soul. We are doomed. And then the father started freaking out as well. Until at one point, the voice from behind the tombstone says, one for you, one for me, and we are done. And then the father and the son let out a big sigh of relief. Till the voice from behind the tomb said, wait, we still need to get the two nuts by the gate. I want to talk to you today about father and son. Father and son. And let me tell you something about the relationship between father and son. Well, more than like parents and children, right? It's something very dear in the Jewish tradition, and something very important. That the rabbi said that in every generation, we have to make an effort to connect these two generations together, because we have both things to learn from each other. Okay? I believe, I'm a parent, I believe, parents will learn from our children, and children, they learn from us. And as they keep growing, we learn more and more from them. But I believe, at least at the beginning of their lives, it's very important for us to teach them everything that they need to succeed and to be happy and content in life. That's why, and let me tell you something, I don't know if you ever noticed, when we go to the cemetery, right, to visit, we put a little stone on top of the tombstone. There are many reasons for that, but there is one that is my favorite. And somebody told me that the Hebrew word for stone is even. And even is the fusion of two words, Av and Ben, father and son. Why? Because when we go visit to the cemetery and we remember everything that the previous generation taught us, then it's a beautiful way to connect and to relive those beautiful memories and everything that we learn from them. So it's a very important thing to be sure that we are teaching our children the right thing. In fact, In Judaism, we have 613 commandments coming from the Torah, right? Plus many others that they were instituted by the rabbis. One of the commandments from the Torah is called Talmud Torah. You know what Talmud Torah means? It's the obligation of a parent to teach Torah to their children. But then the rabbis explained this mitzvah. He said, well, it's not really Torah. You don't have to teach your children how to read Torah, how to change the Haftorah, right? Or the commandments. He said, no. Those things, those technical things, those are coming from their tutors, from the teacher, from the rabbis. The obligation for the parents is to teach the ethics, the morals, the guidance of the Torah to their children. In other words, for them to serve as Torah role models for them to learn from you. And that is a mitzvah. And sometimes we have a misconception of what a mitzvah is. Because sometimes we do a good action and say, such a mitzvah. No, a mitzvah is a commandment. It's not a good deed. A mitzvah is something that you are obligated to do. And it's our obligation to teach ethics and moral to our children. We are not allowed to delegate that into anybody. And we just finished celebrating Hanukkah. Beautiful festival, right? So that we call it the Festival of Lights, with latkes. We play with the dreidel. But Hanukkah is so much more than that. Hanukkah, yes, we observe and we remember the miracle of the oil. We remember the big military win of this small group of Jews over the mighty army of the Greeks. That's true. But I don't know if you realize that the word Hanukkah, right, that we usually translate as dedication, because the temple was dedicated once again by the Hasmoneans, right? Hanukkah also comes from the Hebrew word chinuch. Chinuch means education. So why would we have a holiday called education, coming from chinuch? Why do you think that? Because Hanukkah is also our opportunities for parents, and I will say sometimes even grandparents, to understand the concept of how important it is to be the ones educating our children and our grandchildren. To be the one without delegating that responsibility into anybody else. We are the one. So when we say that in Hanukkah, on Hanukkah, night after night, we were increasing the light, but I take it as a beautiful metaphor that on Hanukkah we understand that we are the main source of light of our children. We are the one that through our actions and through our teachings, advice, through our mentoring to them, we are increasing their light as well. And why so? Because, light is, the metaphor of the light is beautiful. When you have light, you can see. If you're in a dark room and you have a little bit of light, you can see a little bit. If you have more light, you can see better. And if you have more of that light, you start seeing every single detail. So Hanukkah is the festival of education in the sense that we can increase their light or their understanding into the world. Now, it is interesting because Judaism is teaching us that this cannot happen if we don't connect these two generations. And I believe that it's not a coincidence that right after Hanukkah, we read this Torah portion that we read today. Why so? Remember how we finished last week's Torah portion? What happened is Joseph took Benjamin as a prisoner. He wanted to say, because, Joseph accused Benjamin of stealing his cup, said, you are going to stay here as a slave. And Judah had enough. Judah, Benjamin's brother, had enough and said, look, in this week's Parsha, at the very beginning, he said, look, by the way, he didn't know that he had his brother in front of him, right? Judah thought it was, second in command of Egypt. So you cannot do that. And there is something that Judah says in Hebrew that is beautiful. Judah said to Joseph, "Lo nuchar hana'ar la'azot et aviv, va'azav et aviv, va'met." What does it mean? It means the boy can't leave his father. If he leaves his father, he will die. And sometimes we understand that he will die is talking about Jacob, right? If Judah doesn't bring Benjamin back to Jacob, Jacob will die. But when you read the Hebrew, it's not so clear who the subject is when it said, he will die. Who will die if he's disconnected from each other? It could be that he's talking about Benjamin, because here we have the most beautiful metaphor of this week's Torah portion. If you take away the boy from the father, if you take away the boy from the previous generation, if you disconnect the two, he will die, in the sense that you are taking away the chances to learn, to be nurtured with everything he needs to live in this world. And there is something even more reassuring to the concept that it happens also in this week's Parsha. When Judah said to Joseph, Judah says, "How can I go up to my father if the boy isn't with me?" The rabbi said, the metaphor here is Judah is saying, how can I go to my father in heaven at the end of my life if I didn't do anything I could to be sure that the next generation is alive? So, in other words, we can understand why for the rabbis, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, teaching ethics, teaching the tools that the kids need, is a responsibility and is a mitzvah. It's not an option. Because we have the responsibility to create a new generation with values. If there is something that we learn because we have experience, is about values and what works and what doesn't work. So it's very important that we take the time that it needs, without distractions, without postponing it, to talk with our kids about what is right and about what is wrong. If you think that that could be delegated to the school, you are fooling yourself. This is a responsibility for each one of us. School will excel at teaching them math, geography, and English. But we have to excel, as Judah said here, at teaching our kids values and to give them light so they can see the world for what it is. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.